This is Inside the Wolf's Den, an entrepreneurial journey with Shawn and Joni Wolfswinkel.
Shawn Wolfswinkel here with Inside the Wolf's Den, and I'm going to be moderating this talented panel of entrepreneurs. So it should be an interesting recording, and we should have some
You can just call us the bald and the beautiful. Just kidding. Actually,
wow,
that was Josh's. I'm joking.
Already throwing blows. So it should be a good recording. But yeah, we're going to talk about an event that the three of these entrepreneurs have coming up, and I'm going to be moderating today and just asking them some questions about their expertise. And so we got the beautiful Joni Wolfswinkel, the only one with hair, and going over hiring, operations, right, and running a remote team members.
Mm-hmm.
So
building a successful remote team.
And then we got Steve Rozenberg, who's going to talk about scaling your business and sales and marketing. And then we got Josh Huite that's going to be sharing his insights on leadership and culture in a business. So should be a good day, and we'll talk a little bit later about the one-day event. But it's an exciting thing. You got three talented individuals. They're going to be sharing all their wisdom and insights. Presenting to you guys, but also it's a great time for you guys to come as business owners, ask questions, and learn how to accelerate your business. And so their events are always awesome. There's always a happy hour at the end of the day, and really a chance to just collaborate and not only with other entrepreneurs, but these three entrepreneurs as well. So let's get right into it. So Steve, I'm going to kick off with you. Will you share a little bit of your background and what inspired you to focus on building and scaling businesses?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's great to see everybody. Obviously, me and Josh are not the beautiful. We are the bald, in case anybody was curious. Joni can take the beautiful title. So it's good to see you guys again. Looking forward to doing this event. I think at some point, different people come together that have different superpowers. And I think it's great that we can all align to just really help out entrepreneurs, because I think at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter if you're in construction, real estate, property management, chef. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, I look at this as we're all entrepreneurs trying to build a business to have a better life, and understanding how to build that business to make it run, making recurring revenue over and over again, and to be able to get that business to operate without you and to become the person that you need to become, the new identity, if you will, as a business owner, is kind of the journey I think all of us are on, or all of us are on different stages of that journey. And so I think what we're trying to do is kind of give you a roadmap. And I think that, if you think about it, if you're a doctor and you wanted to become a doctor, you go to medical school, right? Lawyers go to law school, but where do entrepreneurs go? What school? And we could say, well, the school of hard knocks, but 96% of all entrepreneurs fail in 10 years and go out of business. I wouldn't want that statistic if that was a doctor, right? So something's wrong with that analogy. And I think that's what, we've all weathered storms. And I think that understanding that we're just on the journey like everyone else, we are in the trenches. We're not people who did it. We're people who are doing it to have a better life. And I think that's people that come to the event are going to learn the different facets that we all have are very different, but they're really all the same, because what we're doing is trying to build a better life. So my background is first and foremost, I'm an airline pilot, right? I've been flying for an airline for the last almost 30 years for multiple airlines. Been trained by Boeing, some of the biggest airlines in the world, on how to run processes, procedures, checklists, how things work. And we use that knowledge to grow and scale a property management company in Houston, Texas, same as Shawn and Joni. And at the time, I was in charge of sales and marketing. So we injected the airline ideology of processes, checklists, systems into building a scalable model with recurring revenue and repeatable revenue. So what I'm going to show you is how we took our business, scaled it exponentially fast, all organically, meaning we just got one client at a time, and how anyone who's listening can do it too, because it's not it's not magic. There's no magic potions. There's no one word of the day. It's doing the same things over and over again, repeatable, to build recurring revenue. I think at the end of the day, and I don't know what you guys think, but I think monetization, which is sales and marketing, is a business needs that the way we all need oxygen to breathe. If you don't have marketing and you don't have sales, you're kind of strangling yourself. You just don't realize it until your bank account says zero. So obviously my perspective of my contribution of this event is that monetization is, I don't think it's the most important thing, but I think it's the first thing. It's kind of like in an airplane, they say, put on your oxygen mask first and then go do everything else. There's a reason. I think we need the same thing when it comes to building our business. Get money coming in, and then you can go and buy fancy software and do all this other stuff. But if you don't have money coming in, you're not breathing, you're kind of dying. So that is my ramble to what I'm going to be talking about.
Of course, Steve thinks his topic is the most important out of these other two.
And not about you. What do you guys think of me?
I think once you get started, Steve, you're too lazy to stop.
That's right. Exactly. 100%.
Let's switch gears, yes, and let's talk a little bit. Josh, maybe just share a little bit of your journey to becoming a leader. And, along those same lines, I think, as entrepreneurs, we all face challenges and along the way. And I know you guys are going to be getting into that in your one-day event, is like how you guys have overcome those challenges. And because we all face them, and we all, and Steve, the truth, more businesses, the crazy part is that majority of people, when they're struggling, is they start shutting down their marketing, like in sales. That's like the first thing. It's like, oh, we got to cut this marketing budget, when they're struggling, and they are cutting off the oxygen. But Josh, maybe just talk about your journey, what you've had to overcome and challenge along the way, and kind of what you're going to be sharing at the one-day event.
Yeah, I think that I think the most important internal piece of a company is culture. And I think that marketing that we're doing, sales that we're doing, hiring and development that we're doing, all has to promote, support, and fuel the culture of the business. And for me, that stems from leadership. And what I like about what Steve said is, we all have our superpowers. And with Steve's superpower being sales and closing and that monetization, and Joni with the infrastructure and operations and how to build a team remotely, I think the third piece of that stool is leadership. And I think that those pieces are so importantly intertwined, because you can sell as much work as you want, but if you can't have and keep good people to do the work, you end up over-promising and under-delivering. So what do we do with the work when we get it? Now, if anybody has ever left a job for $1 or $2 an hour, or has had somebody leave their company for $1 or $2 an hour pay raise, they didn't leave the industry. They left the leader. They left the culture. And I think, especially in the skilled trades, we have put ourselves in a position where we just rotate through this small workforce that is in our community, and everybody ends up with a tarnished reputation. So my experience coming up through the trades and being in the blue collar world my entire life, I recognize that even from myself hopping and leaving for that $2 an hour pay raise, it's sold to you as opportunity. And the reality is, I was still doing the same job for the same poor management, with the same broken systems, with the same failed outcome. And when I started my first company, I recognized that the one piece that was missing was leadership. I never had a good leader. And that just became my sole obsession, not even focus, like my sole obsession. How do we create a culture? And to do that, how do I become the best leader? And now getting the opportunity to teach and instruct and educate and empower and elevate other people on how to become a leader for themselves, for their families, for their companies, and for their clients. I think it's such an important catalyst for the growth and success of a company.
Yeah, that's awesome. Joni, that's along those same lines. How do you do that with an international workforce?
Yeah,
people
so
that are remote.
I'll say that I've been passionate about building remote teams, and I think this is why as our company, Shawn and I own multiple companies, but as our property management company was growing and scaling, so were our salaries, right? And so were our overhead costs. And every time we looked at the financials, we're like, man, where is all the money going? Well, that's where all the money was going. And so I started off, actually, I hired my first VA, and we tried him out as a leasing coordinator. And he's actually, to this date, he's been with us 9 years. So, and when I got him integrated into our team and our culture, I realized that this guy was doing circles around all of my leasing people in-house. And so anytime I had an employee that quit, or I was finding a new role for a position, I was looking to hire internationally because I was saving on the cost of international employees. And what excited me and motivated me is the financials. At the end of the day, I was seeing more of those profits and keeping more of those profits. And so that's what I do now. Is I'm passionate about helping other business owners, grow and scale profitably.
Awesome. Steve, I wanted to ask you, in today's market, right? It's probably a very different landscape than when you first opened your doors of your property management company. So give us some advice or maybe share some insights of what you're going to be sharing with how to stay relevant in today's market. How to, there's so much noise out there, right? With just politics alone, there's a lot of noise. But so just talk about, and the tariffs now and stuff like that. How do you stay relevant? How do you keep your business on the forefront of clients' minds and staying in front of people?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think first of all, speed is the key, right? So something that Joni pointed out where, when you have virtual assistants, and obviously I'm a big fan of that as well, is when somebody contacts you, right? It fundamentally, somebody has to have a problem and you have to have a solution. So you've got to make sure, number one, that you are marketing to a hungry crowd. If I sold hamburgers and the hamburger stand was outside of a buffet restaurant, I probably would not sell many hamburgers. But if I took that same hamburger stand and I put it outside University of Texas football game, when the football game lets out, I'll sell all of them. So the food didn't change, but the crowd changed. So the first question is do you have a hungry crowd that wants what you have to offer? Many times people don't think that. They think everybody loves hamburgers. Well, that if I'm outside of a vegan restaurant, probably not the same case, right? So I've got to make sure that the people in front of me have a problem, meaning they're hungry, and I have a solution. When they do call, what is the speed that you're getting back? Now, it's been proven now, and I don't remember what it was when I had my business, but it's within 3 minutes. If you do not call them back within 3 minutes, I mean, think of us as purchasers. If we call someone and they don't answer and we leave a message, we're probably already going to the next person online. How is that any relevant to our business? So number one, speed is the key. The next question is are we solving their problem? And is it the person that we actually want to be solving the problem for? Meaning, do you actually take the clients and go, okay, that's an A client because of X, Y, Z. That's a B, that's a C, that's a D. Once you identify your target client, then I would suggest start grading them and start identifying what is the common thread with all the A clients? What is the average age, average income, average price deal? Most importantly, what are the top 3 reasons that they used you? Once you know why they used you, and if let's say Shawn and Joni, you guys are my target client and you guys are my A clients, I'm going to call you and say, what are the top 3 reasons that you used me? Well, you showed up on time, you abided by the contract, and you did everything that you said you were going to do. Okay. Well, if you guys are my target client, why wouldn't I go and do the same thing and use that as bait, as my advertisement to go get more Shawn and Jonis of the world? Because most people are going to go, that's my problem. But what do? We do a generalized message that goes to everyone. And so it basically doesn't hit anyone. So I think understanding, because there's so much noise out there with politics, hitting that bullseye and being laser focused on who you're going after is number one important. And number 2 is the speed and the velocity at which you get back to them to solve their problem. And that's the difference.
We heard a statistic last week where people, I don't know the exact, but it was that the average person on their phone will scale the height of the Eiffel Tower. That's how much them just scrolling on their social media every day. It's like, that's how much. And so like, that's so fast. So like people are just scrolling, or like on Netflix, like they spend more time searching for a show than they actually do watching shows. But anyway,
guilty.
So it's just it's crazy how people are to grab their attention. You know, you got to have something to make it pop or make them. But Josh, I wanted to ask you, what are some key qualities in leaders today, and talk about more relevant to today. What key qualities are they going to need to in the demographics are changing, the probably the age of the average workers changing. What are some key qualities to stay relevant today?
I think it was 2017, the millennial generation became the largest demographic in the workforce. So we're already knee deep into this shift of the age of people. And now the millennials are becoming the business owners, and they are becoming the leaders. And the biggest quality that leadership needs to possess now is communication. So I was raised by the old breed, the graybeards. There wasn't a lot of communication. There was more hazing and beatings, and that's how we were raised in the trades, and it was the old way, and it worked, but those methods aren't effective anymore. Creating a consistent feedback loop is such a high value quality in leadership now. You have to not tell your team what to do. You have to ask them how they are and where they are and what's going on in life. And you've got to build a personal connection with them. So I one of the things that I've seen in working and leading people across multiple generations, from baby boomers to all the way down to millennials, I recognize that my millennials just need a quicker feedback loop. Yeah. So being able to recognize that as a skill of communication and setting that up, that's what I like. There to me, there is no greater quality necessary in successful leadership than the ability to effectively communicate.
Mm-hmm. The feedback loop is huge.
Love that.
Yeah. And it's something that we've made a very conscious effort over the last in our businesses is that feedback loop, and it is like you're right. It is a shorter, quicker feedback loop, and that they're expecting too. But Joni, talk a little bit about what are some tips for business owners that are considering expanding their workforce and maybe doing it remote or international team members? Yeah,
well, when I look back at like some of the challenges that business owners have, right, what is the hiring process, and most business owners, or a lot of business owners that I talk to, don't actually have a hiring process. So I think that's number one, is if you're looking to hire internationally, guys, you need to have some sort of hiring process, right? And then also using tools like the DISC assessment or the predictive index to really, really decide whether or not this candidate has the skill set to be able to do whatever job description you're asking them to do, right? And then, of course, when you do integrate them into your company, back to that feedback loop. Regular check-ins, onboarding them, right? That's a huge process as well, making sure that you onboard them correctly.
Yeah, it's something we did. It took us a long time to actually ask for, in the onboarding, one of the things now is like we ask the hiring person, like, how did the hiring manager, whoever they reported to, how did they do in training you and all that? It's amazing that we went for years without asking for any feedback. We just, I guess we assume we did such a great job.
Well, that's the one question that I ask when I'm having consults with clients. I'm like, all right, so, what did your onboarding process look like? You're like, I didn't have an onboarding process. And if they tell me, well, my VA is not working out. Well, I can tell you why they're not working out is it goes back to that communication, right? Mm-hmm. Back to the regular check-ins, the 30, the 60, the 90-day reviews, the quarterly reviews, all of that, right?
Awesome. I'm going to ask a question.
Preach, sister.
I'm going to ask
one thing.
Go for it.
One thing also, guys, like Joni, you hit on a good point, and something I think people need to think about when it comes to hiring is the average bad hire is about a $60,000 mistake, right? And we all know that can get much higher depending on how long you keep them.
Yes.
But if you think about it, like from us in the property management world, we won't even take a tenant for $1,000 rental until we do a credit, criminal background screening. For someone who's going to work for us, we take 1 hour to interview them, and we're like, "Yep, they're good."
They're good.
And it's like, and then we're shocked that it doesn't work out. And I mean, listen, we're all guilty of this, but it's
Right.
we learn from the mistakes. And I think what Joni brings up is so valuable because, you know, what people are getting from this conversation is they're getting our mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
They're learning the mistakes that we've made so they don't make them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I think is so valuable, that people don't, like, maybe they get this or maybe they don't, but all of our mistakes are probably hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars that we have all made from everything that we do, that everyone's going to get to avoid in one day of meeting with us and talking to us. That's, to me, amazing when you think about it.
Yeah. What is that worth to everybody, right? Like, can you imagine being in a room with all three of us?
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's gonna be fire. And to kind of coattail off of what you guys are saying is that piece right there: interviewing, how to interview, how to ask questions, how to onboard, how to recruit talent. Because the common mistake that we all make as business owners and leaders is we just expect people to know what we know, think how we think, and do it because that's how we would do it. And we take that assumption with such a hands-off approach that we set them up for failure, we set us up for failure, and then who gets the poor benefit of that? Our client. Our client suffers from our ability to correctly hire and correctly have those conversations. And then we get frustrated and go, that's not how I would do it, or I don't understand why you don't know that, or can't you just work as hard as I do? So this erosive narrative begins in the mind of the leader and the owner, and then naturally they blame the candidate that they invited into their company, promised them a livelihood, and now fired them because they're not like they are.
Yeah. Josh, on that, I'm going to continue. That question is going to be for everybody, but I'll start with you, Josh. How... kind of along the lines of what I was asking Steve earlier, it's a crazy world we live in, high interest rates, and for majority of us, it's not that high, but for most people, they think it's high. We've seen much higher back in our days, but how can business owners not only survive in today's climate, but also thrive?
One of this is going to be what Steve talked about earlier, is you have to understand that you're offering solutions. Mm-hmm. The concept of being a features and benefits sales company, that those are commodities to a lot of people. We're there to solve their problem. So the first thing you have to do is make sure that your clients understand your message, and you have to understand who your client is. To answer your question another way from kind of my perspective is empowering your team to inform and educate their clients on simple things like financing. I think the biggest tool that we have to weaponize our team in overcoming the list of things that you talked about was, how do we alleviate the pain of our client? And I'm going to give you a quick example. Let's say we go into a house and we've got to change a water heater. And for sake of conversation, let's see that water heater repair replacement is $2,000. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, for a lot of people right now, the water heater was the problem. Now the $2,000 is the problem. So we have to be able to solve their problem without creating more pain. And I truly believe that the easiest and most effective way to do that is to weaponize our team so they can perform in the field, where they can educate, inform, and empower the clients through something as simple as financing.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Awesome. Joni, answer that same question.
Yeah. So there's two things that I would say. First one is you have to be willing to adapt and pivot. I think, I mean, as we know, this market is changing, right? With AI. I mean, what you did 5 years ago, you're probably not doing the same things today. So you have to recognize that, and you have to be willing to adapt and pivot. And the second thing that I will say is, in this market, you have to focus on your customers. I think that, create those raving fans, right? So those customers keep coming back, so you do get those referrals. Those are my two things I think you really need to focus on.
Steve, I'm going to ask you a follow-up question. So what's the best piece of advice you would give somebody that's just starting out, or, maybe fairly new in their entrepreneur journey?
Besides hiring me as their coach. I think that you need to reverse engineer your business from the end backwards. And so I like, you've got to figure out where you're going to end. And a lot of times as entrepreneurs, which all of us have probably done, we started a business and we just used motivation as our driver. And we just said, I'm going to work as hard as I can, and I'm going to make this piece of plywood fly with enough brute force. But we didn't really know where we were going. We don't have a destination. And if you look at something as simple as Google Maps needs two things to work. You need a starting point and you need a finishing point. If you don't give it those two things, Google Maps says, bro, I can't help you. If you go and you start driving and I give you an address, I'm not just going north, I'm going to an actual address. And I say, oh, Google says make a right, but I'm going to make a left. Does Google Maps redirect you back to where you started, or do they redirect you to where you're going? It redirects you based on your destination. Many of us, and I know we have all probably done this, we started a business and we had no destination. We don't know how much gas we need. We don't know the routes. We don't know the weather. We don't even know how long it's going to take us. We just said, get in the car and let's go. I've got a good gut feeling. And the problem with that is eventually, as we know, you run out of gas. But more importantly, just as Joni and Josh alluded to, when you bring on an employee, at some point, they need to be involved in the vision of the company. Where are we going? What is this? Are we going to Disneyland? Are we going to Magic Mountain, SeaWorld? Where are we going in this car? And you're like, bro, I don't know. We're just busy. Let's just keep going. And at some point, that person gets out of the car because you don't have a vision. And so I think that, going back to your question, I think the best thing you can do is start with the end in mind and reverse engineer it backwards, just like you would your driving destination.
Mm-hmm. So for somebody that's, I want to ask you this, Steve, because I think you, out of the entrepreneurs we got here, you're probably the only one that I know. You have always maintained your pilot license, right? And like what I would consider a plan B. Do you feel that was ever a crutch to you, or do you feel, and when you're consulting other business owners, do you feel like they should maintain that, or maybe the spouse maintain some kind of income, to while they build their company and scale it and all that? I wanted your perspective on that.
Yeah. Listen, I would say yes, to a very large degree. It probably was a crutch. Now, financially, I do well enough that I don't need it. But I also would say, I don't know where it's written that says if you're doing something you love doing, you should quit because you have a certain amount of money in the bank. So my thing is like, if I really enjoy flying and I get to fly all over the world and I love it. Mm-hmm. If I hated it and I'm like, God damn, I hate going to the freaking airport. I hate getting in these planes. I hate going through customs. Then they go, why don't you just quit? Yeah. Now, many people, as we know, they're running away from a life they don't want. They quit their jobs. They quit their entrepreneurship. They quit whatever they're doing because they hate it. And the problem is when you run away from something you don't want, you run right back into the life you're running away from. So I don't believe in this, hey, you should quit your job and you should go out and just burn the boats. Listen, when you have a family and you have shit going on, sometimes you got to work hard. Sometimes you've got to do both. Mm-hmm. Because, we all know we have to work like no one else so we can have a life like no one else. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that means working 2 jobs, 3 jobs, 5 jobs. Because the same thing that we could say, well, Shawn, why do you guys have 5 businesses? Why don't you just have one? You're like, because I like it. And so I think that's I think that there's some truth to it, though, that yes, it is a crutch. I know that I do pretty well as an airline pilot, but it's also something that I've worked my butt off to do. And I don't think there's anything that says that because you get a certain status in life, stop doing the things you love doing, in my opinion. So I don't know if that answers it. It's probably
That's
like
good.
a yes to both.
I appreciate that and your honesty. So Josh, what best piece of advice would you give somebody that's starting their entrepreneur journey?
Most people start a business because they have a particular skill set. And if you're a plumber and you're working for a plumbing company and you decide you're going to start your own business, you just look at it and go, okay, I'm a plumber and I can do plumbing things. Therefore, I'm going to buy a logo, buy a truck and some tools and go do plumbing things for myself. The best piece of advice that I would give people is you have to invest in yourself and recognize that you're no longer a plumber, you're a business owner, and then you're a leader. And then you have to understand these operating metrics of your business so you know how to sell and you know how to market. And not that I worked for an old timer. We worked together on this big commercial site in downtown Reno. And he gave me this piece of advice. We were talking about superintendents specifically, but I have found that it's pretty universal, especially in leadership and growth. He said, you don't have to know how to do everything. You just have to know how to get everything done. And, that was a guy that was a superintendent for like 40 years. And he just dumped this fortune cookie wisdom on me. So I think that when people go into business, they have to recognize that if they don't invest in themselves and they don't elevate, they're simply going to own a job from now till eternity. And they're never going to be able to elevate. And then the worst thing happens is you hate your business, you hate your craft, you hate your customers, and you hate your employees. And then you're miserable every day and you're just driving this ship of death until one day you hope to save up enough money to retire or die on the job site first. So invest in yourself. Be intentional about that.
Yeah. Awesome. Joni, would you follow up with that?
I would say best piece of advice I can give to somebody starting off is be open to learning new things, right? And seek mentorship, which we've got 2 amazing coaches right here sitting next to me or kind of sitting next to me. And honestly, guys, be prepared to fail because you are going to fail, right? Do we fail every single day? Absolutely. But we use those failures as opportunities to grow as well, right?
And to follow up, Steve, kind of what you had mentioned earlier and Josh and all, I don't think there's kind of like when raising children and stuff, there was no like manual that said like, you got to do 1, 2, 3. I mean, there's you guys have some processes and stuff and underlining there's certain things we all do to make a successful business, but there's no rule out there that says you have to burn your bridges and start a business and do all that, or there's no rule that said you can't work with your spouse, because I mean, some people it works, some people it doesn't, and if you love flying, why would you quit something you love doing in order, just because you can do both? And so I think and Josh, do what you said, if you want a thriving, it depends on what you want. I think there's some people out there that probably don't mind being the sole entrepreneur. I grew up in the trades, and so I had a dad and a grandfather that I think they just passionately loved doing trades. I don't say they were great business owners, but they were, they didn't run a business that ran on its own without them. It always was dictated upon them, but they loved it so much I don't think there's a right or wrong way, but and you got to find your own path along the journey. But you got some great leaders here. And I think you're going to learn a ton at this event. And so I'll start off with Josh. What any takeaways, anything you want the listener to hear about the event coming up, about, anything we didn't talk about that they're going to get at the event? Maybe just share some more insights and some takeaways.
A couple things. One is I can't express enough the dynamic energy that is between the three of us, Steve, Joni, and myself. You've got three people that, again, have superpowers in specific things. I know Steve and Joni, their superpowers complement mine so well, it actually makes me look good at what I'm doing. so that's a benefit. But I think people need to understand that when you get in a room of like-minded people that want to get things done and they want to grow and they're intentional about it, and then you get to witness people like Steve and Joni on stage share their superpower and just pour into you intentionally and like unconditionally for an entire day. You just can't find that in a lot of places. So I'm excited to be a part of that. I mean, it's like it's one of the greatest compliments for me to be in this conversation, and the fact that I'm going to get to share a stage with two high performers like yourselves. A big takeaway for me and everything that we talked about comes from something that Joni said earlier with the drastic change and improvement that we have with AI coming. And I mean, it's here. It's going to continue to grow. One thing that I want people to understand is people don't remember what you did. They remember how you made them feel. I look at this drastic growth and takeover of AI and a lot of these pieces as a bigger, better opportunity to hammer down on customer service, building the relationships, creating the best experience, because we're only getting better and better tools to do that. So the big takeaway for me is pour into your clients, pour into your team. And for me, the best way that you can do that is to pour into yourself as a leader, so you become that catalyst for that experience, for that culture, and for that growth moving forward.
Awesome. And Steve, any last minute takeaways or something you want the listener to hear about the event before we cut this?
I think what I want people to understand is the framework to be successful. Not the words we say or the catch-all phrases, not even, Joni referenced AI, like there's going to be another AI in a couple years. There's going to be another new best thing. But if you understand the frameworks, or we'll say the recipe to be successful, I think that's what's more important, of having the right mindset of what we, again, I say this again, of learning to avoid the mistakes that we have all made. So what you're getting is you're getting us. You are getting conversations with people that have done it. That's what you're getting. And so to me, that is priceless, because unless you've got 40, 50 years of our combined experience and our combined mistakes, you're going to repeat those. And I tell people all the time, you will pay the bill. And yes, investing in yourself to become successful, it's not cheap. You've got to commit the most valuable thing you have, which is your time. But wait till you get the bill for failing. That's a much bigger bill. And you get nothing to show for it. We're showing you how to avoid this.
You get some scars.
You do get some scars.
Yeah. So I think, again, I just go back to, you're getting us. You're getting the conversations. This is us raw, in person, to kind of go, look, don't go left, go right. We've all gone left. It doesn't work. Take the recipe to go right. And so I think that's what you're really getting.
Joni, any last minute?
No, I will just say, I've said it before. I mean, to have the three of us together in one room, right? I mean, this is unheard of. And what we're offering here, if you're not here, then you are missing out, right? Like Steve always says, you're either dying or growing. So if you want to grow, be here. Just as simple as that.
So August 22nd, 2025, the Strategic Growth Accelerator, held here in Houston, Texas. So we're going to have all the details in the show notes. We're going to, on YouTube, all this will be, everything, all the links, QR codes will all be in there for you to register. Please come check it out. Again, one day live. Is it going to be recorded? No? Maybe?
Now that you said that, we probably will record this.
But if not, you got to be here. So come. It's a great event. Just fly in for the day. It'll be well worth your time. Again, the networking at the end of the day is going to be it's going to pay for the whole event. Just the networking and getting a chance to ask your specific questions to these three very smart entrepreneurs. So, guys, thank you, and we'll see you all on August 22nd.
All right, guys. See ya.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Inside the Wolf's Den, an entrepreneurial journey with Shawn and Joni Wolfswinkel. Tons of entrepreneurial podcasts are out there talking. But Joni and Shawn are living it every single day. Their portfolio now includes many franchises and medium-sized businesses. We talk about the trials and motivators of successfully running a business. Join us again soon for another podcast. But until then, reach out on the website at InsideTheWolfsDen.com, on Facebook at Inside the Wolf's Den, on Instagram at Inside the Wolf Den. We'll see you again soon. This is Inside the Wolf's Den. We'll see you next time.